Ray Allen is best known as a 10-time NBA All-Star and arguably the greatest three-point shooter in the history of the sport. But he's in Washington this week for something that has nothing to do with basketball. He's lobbying Congress to increase funding for type 1 diabetes research. He stopped by with his 6-year-old son, Walker, who lives with diabetes. Type 2 diabetes obviously gets a lot of attention. Millions and millions of Americans have it. Type 1, I don't know, I think I was reading 5% of people who suffer from diabetes. So it doesn't get as much attention. You're here in Washington trying to get more attention, more research money. What are you guys asking for? What are kind of the steps that potentially could happen?
Well, it was interesting because I seen a mother the other day, and her daughter just recently was diagnosed, and in her school she was one out of 700 children that have diabetes, and on TV all day long nobody talks about type 1 and where she lives, and I think maybe Utah. And then my wife Walker and myself came on TV, and she's like, finally, somebody's talking about type 1 diabetes. And what the JDRF has been doing is making sure that we find a cure, one, and create the awareness behind this disease. That's something that we've always wanted to talk about, is getting people to understand it, understand the warning signs, so we make sure that kids aren't misdiagnosed. It is a deadly disease if they're misdiagnosed. But for us here today, we want to go to Congress and make sure they continue the funding. We're here so they can see the faces of the kids, the faces of the parents, all of us that deal with it every single day. And even though, I do what I do and I'm doing it at a professional level, I'm still just a dad, and I want them to make sure they find a cure and understand our story.
Yeah, what about all that stuff, Walker? Is it kind of a pain? What's the annoying parts of it?
Some shots.
Yeah, you don't like getting the shots, and then you get shots
10 times a day.
10 times a day?
Yeah.
That sounds lousy. And how do you deal with that? You just say, I have to do it, or?
I just do it.
When you feel like, when we're talking about diabetes, when you feel like you're gonna get low, how do you feel? How does your body feel? Like, you could be playing sports and you always tell mom, what do you tell her?
I feel shaky.
When and how did you find out that Walker had type 1 diabetes?
We were playing in the NBA Finals in 2008, and when we got there, when we first got into LA, we were in the hotel, and he'd throw up. He would just kind of he was like a noodle. He'd be walking around, and he looked kind of like sallow in the face, and so we took him in, and we were. I got the phone call that morning, and it came rather quickly before I had a meeting. I had a meeting that morning of the game, and when she called me, I knew there was something wrong because she was calling me rather quickly, and she told me that the nurse didn't want to check his blood because she said it was just something going around, and she forced the nurse, my wife forced the nurse to check his blood. She came back, and the nurse, she had tears in her eyes, and my wife was like, just tell me what it is, I can handle anything, just tell me. And she said that he had diabetes. And that's when she called me and told me, and I just wanted to fight the nurse immediately because, we could have lost him that day if she didn't check his blood. He's
what, the middle of 5?
Yeah.
Do you think he's grown up quicker or grown up different because he has to deal with this thing every day?
He has 3 brothers, and it's his older brother, him, and 2 younger brothers. A lot of times he ends up being the bigger brother because he has so much accountability. Yeah. He has to carry his bag with him at all times, which has his needles, his test strips, his device that pricks his finger, extra needles, extra test strips, calculators to determine blood sugars, and he's the one that he has that accountability. So every day, this morning, he'll get up and he'll say, Ray didn't brush his teeth. I'm the only one to brush my teeth. I'm the only one that got in the shower. I'm the only one that did this, because he has a regimen now that he follows. And I think diabetes, as much as we've made it seem like such a monster, it's given him such a great guideline to how he lives, and it's made him more responsible.
Before we go, some bittersweet news. This is the last day at the post for Fold coordinating producer Ben Connors. Probably more than anyone else, Ben was responsible for the look and functionality of the Fold. He's been our resident technology guru and graphics whiz in addition to everything else. When we tried to use MIT software to track invisible motion, that was Ben's segment. When we showed you a way to look at how our internet activity is tracked, that was Ben again. And one of the first real looks by anyone in the media at how Google Glass works was thanks to some very creative engineering by BCatDC. No word if he'll change his Twitter handle, but next month he becomes BCat California as Ben follows his wife Erin to Stanford. A very good producer, an even better guy. Ben will be missed. We'll soldier on without him tomorrow, assuming we all survive the goodbye party tonight. Till then, good night.